Okay, now I want to share with you two things that will help people listen to your story, and that is humor and storytelling. A couple of things that when you're giving voice to your cause, you want to incorporate these so people really want to listen to you, and you have a better time when you're telling it as well. So first of all, storytelling. There's a basic structure that I learned in improvisation, and that is the structure you will see in almost every movie that you see. It starts with once upon a time and every day. See, you're setting up the foundation until one day. That's called the tilt. And because of that, you're adding more on, and ever since that day. So that's the resolution, that's the moral. So if I were to do that very quickly, I could do once upon a time there was a guy sitting in a park, and there was a guy sitting over in the park. And every day he sat in the sun without his shirt until one day he got a terrible sunburn. And because of that, he had to go to the hospital. And because of that, he met a nurse. And because of that, he never was alone again. See, very simple. So if you want a structure for your story, you can start with something like that so you don't get so sidetracked and go all over the place. It's very simple, and then if you run a theme throughout as well, that's a really good idea so that you do stay on track and people can track with you as you're telling your story. It's one of the most difficult things is because our mind works in this way that one thought makes us think about another thought and another thought, and we end up going all over the place, and the story gets so long that nobody's listening to it anymore. So that's a good structure for storytelling. Also, there's this thing called color and advance, and that is when you have two people, one person you just say color, and they will color the story with saying things like just describing the scene. The grass is so green and it's such a beautiful day, and there's no action at all, but you are like you're coloring the story. And then advance is all action. So everything you say needs to be action oriented. The leaf blew into the guy's face. The dog barked loudly, things like that. That's actually an action step. So you want to make sure you have a combination of both of those when you're telling a story. So you build it up, you're coloring the story, and then you advance it so there's action taking place. And humor, I'll talk just for a couple minutes on humor, and that is, like, who are your favorite comedians? Who do you really love to listen to? Maybe it's somebody in your personal life. For me, I love Jon Stewart. I just saw him this morning again, and the guy is genius in my view because he does a lot of facial expressions. Like the whole thing with comedy, they say with comedy, when your insides match your outsides, and truth is really the funniest thing ever. So when you just learn to say what is true for you, that can be really funny. And then learn to pause a little bit, know when to pause so you bring people into your story. And if you accentuate one word and you have a different facial expression when you do something, that's very funny. You know, it doesn't have to be humor against one person or another person, but just the way you move your face can be very funny. If you exaggerate things, that often brings a laugh, so you can just really exaggerate something. You could also do the power of three. That is typical, and then something really off the wall. So if you're saying something and people are surprised like that, they don't expect what you're going to be saying, that can be very funny. So if you have a humor journal, that's a good idea. If you go throughout your day and you have this little notepad and you're just making notes of how is that funny? Why is that funny to me? You will start to train your brain to see humor in things, and people love humor because humor comes from this Latin word that means fluid and flexible, humor. Fluid and flexible. And what is more fun to listen to? Something that is fluid and flexible, or something that is rigid and that is the way it is? Nobody wants to listen to that stuff. So having a humor journal, I think, is a really good idea because there is a lot of funny stuff happening in the world, and there's a lot of bad stuff too, but if you train your brain to look for what's funny, you will start to be funnier too, and people will want to listen to you, and you'll get your message across. So you gotta love that.